So hello, I'm Yamini. That's how I say using my name. I'm a PhD student from the School of Mathematics. Before I start, I wanted to know what you actually expect out of this talk.
What do you guys feel like you guys want to hear? Her personal story, or how she decided what her treatment she really wanted to go for? Both? So some mixture of that. Just basically your path to deciding what kind of surgery or something like that.
Okay. So that works for me. A few things. So I'm going to talk about the inception, the progress, where I'm at. My point of view in all this, my experience, then neuropsychological testing. That's another chapter in itself, but you'll understand why. And then my personal health records. I'm not sure that if you guys work with personal health records, but I thought I'll just put in a point in case you do. So after each section, I'm going to stop and you could ask me questions because sometimes I kind of tend to lose my chain of thought. So I'll stop after every section. The disclaimer is very important. The views and opinions are just mine. Indiana University is not responsible for any of this, and the conclusions are not based on literature. It's just based on my personal experiences, and they might change, so very flaky. And I'm not against any doctors or any practice of medicine. So how it all started, right? It's like you're just like minding your own business, and it's like something, an asteroid came and hit you or something like that. But it was actually like that. My life is perfect. That's what I keep telling the doctors. Anyway, so this is like, you all know I do have a pineal tumor. It is supposed to be a long-standing thing which grows over a period of time, which takes like a lot of years for fluoride calcium deposits to happen in your brain, and then your pineal gland to calcify, and then a tumor to grow on top of it. So I had insomnia for about 5 years, and then suddenly last September I started having, I just started sleeping a lot. And when I looked up for it, I saw that people with long-standing insomnia, it's very common to have narcolepsy after long-standing insomnia. And so I just thought, hey, I'm just having narcolepsy, I need to fix this. I need to figure this out. But then I started having migraine headaches, chronic fatigue. But one thing very alarming was the alexia without agraphia. So this is a condition in which basically you can write but cannot read. So I can write, I made these slides, but I cannot read back what I wrote if it's in a huge paragraph or something like that. So it's the information, because this is sitting, the tumor is sitting right in the middle of the brain, in the corpus callosum. All the activities that require the hemispheres to coordinate are kind of impaired, which is why there's the writing but no reading. And then there was emotional incontinence. So it's called by a lot of other names, but at the time I was perfect, everything was perfectly fine, but I would feel like I'm feeling very gloomy from inside, right? No matter what I did, I wouldn't feel cheerful. And then I'm asking myself, but my life is perfect. I'm not depressed. I don't have problems. Why do I feel gloomy? I mean, and this is like an emotional conflict, because I'm not supposed to feel this way, but I can't help feeling this way. And that's when I saw the physician, and well, fortunately she immediately ordered an MRI. And that's when they found out that in the first MRI they thought it's a cyst. They said there's a cyst in the corpus callosum, in the splenum specifically. And first, after the MRI, they said, we can't tell you much from this, we'll get a CT angiogram. I got that, and then they said, we still can't tell you much from this, and we just can't find a correlation between your symptoms and the location of the lesion. So they sent me for neuropsychological testing to objectively assess what I'm complaining about. But I mean, a few of my capabilities were mildly impaired, but they didn't think it was so alarming that they would jump into some action right away. While I was constantly complaining that it's severely affecting my quality of life, I cannot go back to school, and I cannot read anything. I'm a PhD student, which means I just do reading, that's what I do, and I can't do that anymore. But from the doctor's point of view, it's like if you know that you have to eat and you have to wake up and you have to sleep and you're not banging into a wall, that means you're living. You're at least sustaining. So that's all they care about. At least at that point in time, that's all they cared about. And then they said they can't figure it out, and they sent me to a catheter angiography, which is as invasive as it could get without the surgery. And then they said, we'll wait for a while and watch it. And now, nobody tells you how long that would be. They'd be like, let's watch it for a while. And you'd ask, how long? They'd be like, as long as it takes. So, because the doctors at Indiana University, I went to Goodman Campbell first, and then they said, as long as it takes. I just wasn't satisfied with as long as it takes, and that the surgery is more harmful than the tumor right now. I thought living this way doesn't make any sense. So I tried to get more views from, more opinions from other doctors, and some of them said that's an arterial venous malformation, and some said that's a complex migraine. But at the end of the day, they said we have to watch because we don't know what to do about it. Until I met this surgeon in LA, where I'm getting my surgery right now, he said we have to go in and get it out before it does more damage. Nobody can tell from an image what kind of a tumor it is. So that was what happened. But this is like my experience with the doctors. So I've always told them this is how I feel, but it was almost like my subjective experience didn't matter to them. They would always look at the images and say, actually from my first to second MRI, the report said that it grew, but the doctor said it's not significant. Some said it's not significant, some said it is. But nobody was bothered about my subjective experience. So I am the patient. Shouldn't I be the center of all this, where people are asking me, what do you want to do, or how do you think it's affecting your life, and how do you want to go forward with this? I mean, I had that option, but the doctors didn't just say that, you know what, if you're so uncomfortable with it, let's try to do something else. They would say, it's not because of the tumor, and leave it at it. I mean, if it's not because of the tumor, why aren't you telling me, or why aren't you trying to find out what else it's because of? And so I kind of felt that I wasn't being heard. My voice just wasn't being heard. And for a very long time, they just took the images apart, and whenever I complained about my symptoms, they said, your move to the US must have been difficult. Are you having relationship issues? Are you having family problems? Do you have any support system in the US at all? And they would somehow forcibly try to fit me into this depression anxiety bucket. Although I'm constantly telling them, look, I'm not stressed out. I'm not depressed. I understand. They're like, we understand this is a tough situation for you. How are you taking this? I'm like, I'm trying to take it as best as I can, but I am not depressed, and I know that. So it's like, there comes a point when all these neurosurgeons are telling you that basically you cannot trust yourself, you cannot trust your sanity. It's very difficult at that point, but then I found out that it's not depression, it's a condition called TBA, which is also called emotional incontinence. I'm going to call that because I cannot say the rest of the names. So I'll call emotional incontinence. So there's a difference between depression and emotional incontinence, and emotional incontinence is related with an underlying neurological disease, or a TBI or an ABI. although I still can't understand why, after knowing that I had an underlying neurological disease, none of the doctors bothered even telling me that this could be emotional incompetence and not depression. Last time when I spoke to my psychologist about it, she was like, she didn't even know that such a condition existed. She was like, what? Then I had to explain all this, and I told her, could you please look up for some resources on it so I could, get some help with it. She said, fine, I will, but I'm very surprised that the doctors didn't think about it, and I was very surprised that my psychologist didn't even know about it. It's like, hey, you're the professional, I outsource this work to you. I didn't study neurology, I didn't study psychology. I come to you because you did that. But that's a picture of me before the angiogram, in a dirty gown. but as a patient, what do I need? I need reassurance from the doctor, and first of all, I think it's very important to have some kind of trust in any business you do, in any collaboration you have. And my trust was faltering because the doctors didn't look like they trusted me anymore. They made it look like I was a crazy person. So I didn't trust their diagnosis anymore just because they didn't listen to me. And a definitive duration, I mean, I understand it's very difficult for doctors to tell me, oh, you're going to get well in so and so time, but they never told me what is going to happen after I wait for so and so time and then do something about it. So it's funny how I spend like at least 2 to 3 hours with like my neurosurgeon every other week, and at least an hour with a neurologist every other week, and at least an hour with my physician every week. But nobody told me that, look, after we do so and so, this is the next plan of action, or anything like that. And when you're shooting ducks in the dark, you feel like you don't want to be the guinea pig. And so in all this, I kind of felt that patient experiences are not designed very well in the hospitals. In hospitality industry, experiences are designed so well. They have experienced designers just to teach your host in a hotel how to welcome you, and they're trained for that. But in a hospital, it doesn't work that way. I think patient experience have to be designed in a specific way so that that trust lasts and your patients are comfortable with it. Yes, this is an important thing in the whole thing, because my neurosurgeon sent me to the neuropsychological testing, but nobody ever looked at the report after that. And to this day, I'm like still wondering, why did he send me there? Because he looked at it and he said, yeah, okay, mildly impaired, and nobody asked for it. And every time I go to a new opinion, I keep telling the doctors, I even have neuropsychological testing reports. They're like, yeah, we can look at it later. They never ask me, and I know they're not interested. So I'm like, why? But one thing is for sure, that it could have helped me see things that I didn't see before, and in a way, it was for me to validate what I was, what was impaired. And I'm sure you must have worked with neuropsychological testing. You guys study it. You do?
So we really don't have much background on it.
Oh, okay. So this is how it works. So it's a test with 4 hours. Standard battery, they don't ever customize it depending on what you lack, what you say your problems are, never. And it's just one center in whole of Indiana, so you have to wait forever to get an appointment. After the wait period, you go in, you do this, you have to actually be prepared for at least 2 days. Before that, you have to sleep and sleep and sleep, so that you just show up there and be awake for all those 4 hours, because it's torture. It's like they put you through all these puzzles and, you know, like a huge quantitative math book, and all of it in 4 hours. And he's like, the doctor kind of measures measures the time, the way you do it, and things like that. And after the first 30 minutes, I kept complaining that, you know what, my head is hurting, it's spinning, and I'm going to pass out. I can't do this. And he kept telling me, no, you have to go through this, we have to do this. And I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. So after 4 hours, he tells me, oh, we're done with the test, this is the final questionnaire. And he hands me a booklet, and I look at the booklet, and it has 600 questions. I'm not kidding. 600 questions. Not on a computer, on a booklet where you don't tick, but it's an OMR sheet. So they give you like 10 pencils, and you have to keep shading the options for 600 questions. It took me a grand 2.5 something hours basically. And they gave this to a person who's complaining that she cannot read. I mean, nobody can beat that experience, seriously. Generally, because we work with people, we conduct studies, and when we hand out a questionnaire, we think that if there is anything more than like 20 questions, it's already a cognitive load. You're already causing trouble to the participants by asking them to answer so many questions. So we actually increase the compensation if there are more questions on the questionnaire. And this, I pay $7,000 for the test, sit on it for 4 hours, plus I answer 600 questions on an OMR sheet. Insane. And what do I get out of that? This. I'll give you a minute to read it. Are you done? Yeah, so after all that, if you read the rest of the report, and because I am a researcher myself, I can see that there are personal biases in anything. I mean, if you perceive anything, there is a personal bias. But the problem with this kind of testing is that the doctor is not declaring his bias. The doctor doesn't say, I have so-and-so bias because of my culture, because of my upbringing, because of my education. And I thought the report was definitely biased from the rest of the report. And he actually writes that I am very worried about my health, which was true. But in a nutshell, he put it across as if my abilities are not as impaired as I complain. And that a lot of it is psychological. But the question is, they didn't have my baseline. When I'm telling them it's a fall from grace for me, they have to take my word on it. But I mean, they compare it against an average baseline, but I found out that the baseline does not take into account your race, your education. It only takes into account your gender, your age. So I just thought that the baseline was totally invalid for me, because the way they said it's mildly impaired, I didn't think that my ability to read was mildly impaired. It was a lot impaired. I mean, because I would time myself on how long I'm taking to read a paragraph, and it would take forever and I would never finish it. I would never understand what's going on, and by the time I get to the second paragraph, it's just, I just forgot the first paragraph. And another doctor told me that it is problems with attention, but like you see here, this one says memory loss. But so right now, this is something I'm working on right now, and I'm actually looking for collaborators from psychology, neuroscience for this. So my proposal is to use brain training applications that we have on our smartphones to get everyday data, to get data for that you could use as a baseline for neuropsychological testing. I'm sorry. So that you could use as a baseline for neuropsychological testing. That way, I have an average from a long period of time, and I have my own baseline. And I want the application to be built in such a way that it has some intelligence. So when your graphs fall down, it actually shows you that, look, it's been over a period of time that your attention has problems, or your visual abilities have problems, your motor abilities have problems, or something like that. And it shows you a very data from a very long period of time. So you can see for yourself when trends are changing, and that gives individual baseline. The second thing is, they don't ever, the 600 questionnaire, the item questionnaire, it did ask about my emotions, about how I felt at that point in time, and if I had nightmares and things like that. But I don't think they were taking into consideration how your emotional state of mind really affects your cognitive abilities and your ability to perform on the test that particular day. And so for my neuropsych testing, like I said, I slept for 2 days, and I tried to prepare myself to be awake and be okay for those 4 hours. But in case you don't do that every day. You don't sleep for 2 days to go to work the next day, right? So I think it has to be, this data has to be collected from every day, not one specific day. Yes, I understand. I mean, I don't deny that he has more experience and expertise in it, but I think it's worth taking a look at this data, and maybe he can actually compare that data to yours, to the data he collected. Or you could just take your app to the doctor and tell him that, look, these are the trends, I want you to analyze it and tell me what's wrong with it. Then you don't need a clinical neuropsychological testing at all. And personality traits. So personality traits also affect your abilities to an extent, and I've been trying to read about it. That sounds funny, but I'm really trying to read about it. So I want to actually take into account all these factors before you actually come to a conclusion about a person's cognitive abilities. And so I'm currently working on this, and I'm actually looking for collaborators to work on this research, because I didn't study psychology and neuroscience, so I'm kind of looking for people who have more expertise in that. Oh, this is the most nightmarish thing, but do you have any more questions before this? Yeah, personal health records. We are at IU, supposed to be one of the best in the nation, and we are a research university, so we have everything. Like, technology we're supposed to be tech savvy, and so are the doctors and the hospitals, and so everything is supposed to be so easy for us. But you should look at my personal health records. So your radiology results are not they are not uploaded on the portal. You go get that in a CD. You actually go to the hospital, get that in a CD, and then there's some blood work on the IU health records. And then, although they are in the same community, the campus health has different medical records compared to IU health. And then I have medical records from other hospitals, which are both physical and digital. And then I have recordings from appointments and calls. When I go speak to a doctor, I try to record that for future reference. And then I have notes that I make from those appointments and calls. And then I have emails from doctors. So all of this put together is my medical records, and there is just no way of putting them all at one place to look at all this data and make an informed decision. I mean, my brain has to do that. The technology is not helping. But you can't give all of this to a person who's already cognitively impaired and say make this decision. It just doesn't make any sense. And this is what I do in my average week. I make appointments to visit doctors, labs, procedures, and update the doctors and look for new information as to who I could contact more. What did the doctor talk about in my past appointment, and what does that all mean? I have to understand that by reading it. And then I try to talk to other patients who have similar conditions, update my friends and family, deal with insurance, that's nightmare. Pay my bills. Now, bills is a very interesting thing because in the previous slide you saw that this actually has billing services, IU Health, but not everything. Just the University Hospital Methodist are together and they go through this. Everything else, no matter where you go in IU, like for example, I go to Goodman Campbell, their billing is different, and they don't have an online billing, so I cannot pay my bills online. I have to send them a check. They send me a paper bill and I have to send them a check. And you see that one of the folders there is just bills, and the other folder is my reports. And these are the things that are not there on any of the patient portals that I already use. So I use one from IU Health, one from Campus Health, and then I went to Mayo, so I have one patient portal, medical records from Mayo Health. So it's just crazy. And apart from that, I have all these paper records and bills. So most of the times I have no way of validating which of the bills I have paid and which ones I didn't, because some just get lost in that pile. And then I have to go pick up medications, and then every other day I have visits to some doctor or the other. You would think this is like, hey, let's do this, check. But I did measure time, and it takes more than 20 hours a week. Funny. And I don't know how any person can actually have a full-time job after all this. Because I don't have 40 hours a week right now. I actually sleep off for 2 days, and then I'll be up and about for a day. And then get rest for 2 days. Which means I have less than 20 hours a week actually. But then this actually takes more than 20 hours, which means more cognitive load, more stress. And then they say, you're depressed. I'm like, of course I'll be depressed. You are depressing me. Well, another thing doctors don't stress about enough is support groups. I joined a support group recently on Facebook. It's called Pineal Cyst, but we're all called sisters. And it's very important not only for emotional validation. I mean, I call it emotional validation rather than support, because it's just so important for you to know that what the doctors are saying might not be true. They might not be right. So you talk to all these different people and understand their experiences. And they also give you so much of information, because I'm very lucky to have been diagnosed so soon. I've met patients who didn't get diagnosed in 5 years, 10 years. Their cysts, tumors just kept growing bigger, and their doctors never sent them to an MRI. Funny enough. And so I met this woman who's 24 now, and she suffered for 10 years. She had severe headaches from the time she was 12, and at 23 she got a surgery. She's 24 now, it's been a year. You should see the amount of research she did into everything related to brain. I mean, you could just give her an MD, I'm telling you. And whenever I have a doubt, I just go to her, and she just she pulls out the easiest link possible. Like, she tells me, this is the link on which you can understand this the most easiest way, but if you want a little more information, then this is it. So she's got so much of information. So support groups are, I wouldn't say that just to tell you that, you know what, it'll be okay, but it is to tell you that it is not okay if the doctor says so. It is not okay if they made this decision to do so. You have to take charge. It's because medical profession is not like the rest of the professions. I remember one of the doctors I met saying, medicine as we know today is not a science. It's not a perfect science. Because if you go to an engineer, if you go to a designer, they will take the set of your problems and they will own it. They will find you a solution, they will engineer it, they'll give it to you. You don't have to bother about it at all. But a doctor doesn't work that way. He doesn't take all your problems. He will just say, not my expertise, go to another doctor. I mean, that's the problem. So support groups are so important to get you all this information. And yeah, thank you very much, and do visit the page and my blog. I will keep it updated. Any questions?
The images you posted, like from the brain scan, those are your own?
I'm sorry?
The images that we saw before for the brain scan, were they your own?
Oh no, they were not my own. So I try to get my own images because it looks very similar to that. But I couldn't work that.
No, that's fine.
That thing they were using, and it wouldn't let me take a screenshot of the screen. It's just insane. That is another thing. They give you the CD, and it's using God knows what software, which is absolutely not user friendly. and sometimes I really feel like the doctors are so stressed out in themselves using all this seriously. I feel like my neurologist needs help. I feel like he feels so hopeless sometimes. Like, I feel like saying, it's okay, it's going to be okay.
So for the surgery that they're going to perform, what is that called again?
Oh, so it's a fully endoscopic skull-base surgery. This is an institute called Skull-Base Institute in LA. The surgeon is called Dr. His name is Dr. Shahinian. So he actually invented the endoscope that goes into your brain. A lot of other places do have endoscopic, but it's partially endoscopic in the sense that they will drill a very small hole in your brain, but they will have to manually go into your into the hole to get out the tumor. So the endoscope is only to view. So a fully invasive surgery is when you don't see anything through an endoscope. You actually cut open the skull, and they want to have as much view as possible. So they try to make a huge incision. And then partially endoscopic is the one in which they see through the endoscope, but they put a physical instrument with their hand. A fully endoscopic one is there's just one device and it's got everything. Right now, the one I'm going through does not have a 360-degree view, but he's actually working with NASA right now, and his new endoscope has a 360-degree view, so you can actually see around, and then it has a thing that sucks out the tumor from inside. Any other questions?
So what has been like the most difficult part, like in your experience? Is it like mainly like losing those reading abilities that you once had, or?
No, actually, you would think the symptoms are the most difficult part, but no. The most difficult part is dealing with the doctors and making the decisions, because as much as you would like to think the decisions are based on information, they're very informed, we are humans and we can't do that. We're very biased, we're very subjective. When it comes to your own life, you're all the more subjective. So when I try to make this decision about what do I want to do, because everybody else, all the doctors I met told me that I'm going to have a permanent disability. They said the best case scenario would be one in which I would get out alive out of the surgery, but none of my symptoms would reverse because they thought that the tumor has done irreversible damage already. And the best case would be in which I won't have any more new symptoms. And there was this one doctor who was telling me it hasn't been so long for those symptoms to be permanent, to be irreversible. There is a chance that they will reverse. So it's almost like, it's not that drastic, but it's almost like one person telling you that the earth is not flat, and you don't know if you should, believe him. It was like it was like that in my case. There was this one person who's telling me, you need surgery right now before this thing infiltrates your other tissues, and everybody else is like, no, the surgery is going to do more harm than the tumor. So it's very difficult to make those decisions, and the frustration is the worst part. You know, pain is something you could deal with somehow, because you'd be like, fine, I am just doomed to this. But frustration is something, you know, that helplessness where the doctors tell you one thing and they say, wait for another 6 months, nothing is going to happen. And you'd be like, I don't want to wait for another 6 months and waste so much time. I'm in school, I want to get back to my actual life. I cannot just stay at home and not do anything. Dealing with the frustration, I thought, was the most difficult thing. Because you're so helpless, because the guy who has all the expertise doesn't have a solution.
Looking forward towards like the surgery, what are your hopes for it? Like, what you'll be like afterwards from talking to other people from your support group, or just finding research on your own?
Yeah. So yesterday, just yesterday we had like this huge discussion on my research group. I'm sorry, my support group about post-surgery. So they tell me that life is definitely better after surgery compared to how miserable you were before surgery. You'll be less miserable, but it's never going to go back to, you know, normal, like perfect life. You know, it's never going to be the way it used to be before all of this happened. So they're like, I spoke to some people who are like 1 year after surgery, 5. I even spoke to a guy who's like 10 years after surgery. They do have some complication or the other, because it's just that your body cannot handle it. It just makes your body weak. So although you might not have anything else in your brain, you might have other complications, other problems coming up in your body. So that, I think it requires significant lifestyle changes, and requires you to be more aware of what your body wants. Like before, I remember I would like not care. I'm like, even if I'm tired, I'm like, no, I have to be size 0, I'm going to run. But I cannot just do that. Okay. Oh. All right. Thank you.